The Last Voyage of the Demeter. The year was 1887, and the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the desolate port of Varna. The Demeter, a once proud schooner, now weathered and beaten, sat anchored in the harbor, awaiting its grim fate. Its hull creaked and groaned as if in pain, a harbinger of the horrors that lay within. Captain Mikhail Petrovich, a weathered man with haunted eyes, stood on the deck, his face etched with fear and regret. He knew he had a cursed cargo on board, and it was his ill-fated duty to deliver it to England. The cargo was none other than the coffin of Count Dracula, a mysterious nobleman from Transylvania. Rumors of his evil deeds and bloodlust had plagued the region for centuries. As the crew prepared for the voyage, a sense of unease hung in the air like a shroud. The townsfolk whispered of dark omens, of bats that swarmed the ship at night and eerie howls that echoed from the cargo hold. Still, they dared not speak of the evil that dwelt within the coffin. The voyage began under an ominous, moonless night. The crew members, a superstitious lot, crossed themselves and muttered prayers as they set sail. The first few days were uneventful, but Captain Petrovich could feel the growing tension on board. His crew's nerves were frayed, and they spoke in hushed tones of nightmares and strange occurrences. As the Demeter sailed further into the Black Sea, the crew's unease turned into terror. Each night, they heard the sound of scratching coming from the cargo hold. It was as if something inside the coffin was trying to claw its way out. The captain ordered the hold locked tight, but the scratching continued. Sleep deprived and terrified, the crew members began to vanish one by one. Their screams would pierce the night, but when the captain and his remaining men rushed to the scene, they found nothing but pools of blood and empty bunks. Panic spread like wildfire, and the remaining crew accused the captain of harboring a vampire on board. Desperation led Captain Petrovich to pry open the coffin one night. What he saw inside would haunt him forever. Count Dracula, with bloodshot eyes and fangs bared, lunged at him. The captain barely escaped with his life, slamming the coffin shut just in time. As the days passed, the crew grew weaker, their veins drained of blood. Captain Petrovich knew they were all doomed. With no hope left, he made a desperate decision. He steered the Demeter toward the rocky cliffs of Whitby, England, determined to end this cursed voyage and the reign of terror aboard his ship. The ship crashed into the cliffs, shattering its hull and spilling its cargo onto the shore. Count Dracula, weakened from the voyage, fled into the night, seeking refuge in the unsuspecting town of Whitby. The Demeter, now a wreck, was found by the authorities, its crew missing, and its cargo scattered. Captain Petrovich, the lone survivor, was deemed insane and sent to an asylum. He would spend the rest of his days haunted by the memory of that accursed voyage. Whitby, too, would forever bear the scars of that night. The town would become a battleground in the fight against the darkness that Count Dracula brought with him. And though the vampire was defeated, his evil would linger in the shadows of Whitby, a grim reminder of the last voyage of the Demeter. Years passed, and the small seaside town of Whitby tried to return to normalcy. But the legacy of that fateful night continued to haunt its cobblestone streets and dark alleyways. Mysterious deaths still plagued the town, with victims found drained of their blood. People spoke in hushed tones about the Whitby Night Stalker, a creature with fangs and glowing red eyes that prowled the streets after dark. Superstition and fear gripped the hearts of the townsfolk, and many began to believe that Count Dracula had returned from the dead. A group of brave souls, led by Professor Abraham Van Helsing, arrived in Whitby to investigate the recent spate of deaths. They were determined to put an end to the terror that had taken root in the town. Armed with crosses, garlic, and wooden stakes, they delved into the darkest corners of Whitby, following the clues left behind by the vampire. Their search led them to the ruins of the Demeter, the ill-fated ship that had brought Count Dracula to these shores. Among the wreckage, they found Captain Petrovich, a broken man who had never truly recovered from that night. He babbled incoherently about the vampire and the horrors he had witnessed. With the captain's fragmented memories as their guide, Van Helsing and his team tracked Count Dracula to his lair, a long-abandoned castle perched high on a craggy cliff overlooking the town. There, they confronted the vampire in a final, epic battle. The castle's stone walls echoed with the clash of steel, the hiss of garlic, and the screams of the undead. Count Dracula, weakened and desperate, fought ferociously, but was ultimately defeated. With a wooden stake through his heart, he crumbled into dust, ending his reign of terror once and for all. As the first light of dawn broke over Whitby, the curse was lifted. The town began to heal, and the memory of Count Dracula and the Last Voyage of the Demeter faded into legend. But those who had witnessed the horrors of that night would never forget the price paid to rid their town of evil. Whitby's once darkened streets now stood bathed in sunlight, a symbol of hope and resilience. The Demeter's shattered hull would forever serve as a reminder of the horrors that had visited the town, and the sacrifice of those who had dared to confront the darkness. And so, the story of the Last Voyage of the Demeter became a cautionary tale, a chilling reminder that evil could visit even the most idyllic of places, and that the battle against darkness was never truly over.